Want to welcome back our audience here to Season 7 of Tech Conversations, presented by the Florida International University Radcliffe Art and Design Incubator. And I want to welcome this afternoon someone that I know from the media industry who is now, I think, is going to be an award-winning author. I want to say it here first. I want to welcome a former media executive for Sony Pictures and Paramount, among other things, entrepreneur and adjunct professor at the University of Miami, Eddie Arias. Bienvenido. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Maggie. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, it's an honor and a pleasure for me because we haven't really been very in touch, but we obviously know of one another. I think you even interviewed me at Paramount at one point, and I saw you promoting Alicia, which is the novel that we are going to be talking about. And I started reading it. I got the book, and it really changed a little bit on my perspective, and we'll get into it. But I want to listen to some of the things that I'm very anxious and eager to know. So first of all, let's talk about your journey into writing this novel. What has inspired this story? Because as soon as you open the book, this quote stood out to me. And I think it's the everlasting question that we're so busy we don't even ask ourselves, right? So who in the world am I? That's the great puzzle. Alice from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So let's kick it off there.
Well, let's do that because that's how the book starts, right? That's the epigraph in the book. I would say that is a very good quote that represents not only the character of Alicia inside the book, but it also represents who I am as an author. Because as you were making the introduction and you were saying, entrepreneur, lawyer, whatever, professor, author, every person has the ability to be so many other things. And at this point in my life, I wanted to explore that part of me of writing stories on paper. I've done movies before, but I wanted to see if I could grab the attention of a reader. That there's not too many today, I would say. People are not reading as much as before. So I wanted to go back to basics and write a story that would have people read, spread the word. And who knows, eventually it would turn into a movie. But my priority was to put it on paper.
I'm saying the movie now because you're just saying that, but it's the book. And it's because I'll get into it in a second. You did a sort of a trailer on AI, what it would look like if it was actually being promoted as such, right? So talk to me a little bit about why it launches during Hispanic Heritage Month, given that we know the character has, her name is Alicia, right? Alice.
Alicia. Her name is Alicia. I obviously don't want to spoil anything here. But when I sat down to write Alicia, I didn't start writing about her in particular. I wrote an outline, let's say, and I started with an image. This was back in 2008, right? So this goes a long time. So back in 2000, I wrote the main skeleton, let's say, main structure of a story about a wealthy couple who hire their housekeeper as a surrogate, right? And then she vanishes days before giving birth. That was the main idea. What begins as a search for the missing woman becomes something darker. It's the realization that the couple that is looking for her, really, they care more about the baby inside of her than the surrogate. And that image is pretty much what sparked the whole thing. After that, this year, with everything that's happening that you can read in the news and the headlines, I thought, why don't we add an extra layer of controversy and conflict, and let's make Alicia being undocumented, right? So we don't know what happens to Alicia. I don't want to spoil it, but Alicia, as I mentioned before, vanishes pregnant days before giving birth. So that's part of, I would say, of the mystery that happens, and why I decided to bring it back to now and write it today, where undocumented life is everywhere in the headline.
Yeah, I feel like when and that's where I think people get hooked, right? When you did that promo that I saw it on LinkedIn specifically, right? Yeah. What would this look like if we were going to promote, whether it be a series or a movie or whatever you call it, generated by AI? To me, I'll be honest, completely honest with you, I was mesmerized because I am somebody who loves a good mystery. And I'm a researcher at heart, right? I'm kind of like, my stuff is that I always wanted to be a journalist, which I was. But, I got into other things. As you said, we are so many other things that there's always that little voice in the back of my head of, what is this one doing? And how are they tied together? And what's the mystery? When I saw that trailer, you really leave a big cliffhanger there as to what actually happens. And I'm somebody that reads very few books. Like, I'm not somebody who's a bookworm. It has to really draw me. And like, for example, I'll share with you that I'm waiting for January to come around because there's a book by an author called Alice Feeney who wrote My Husband's Wife. Look it up. It's another great mystery. I mean, everyone knows if they've been following, the lady comes home one day and the locks are changed and there's a lady at the door that looks like her. It's like,
I will definitely start
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, these stories have to captivate the viewer, okay? Because there's a lot of clutter. And I mean, I don't know how well the book has been doing or not. I know you have it on Amazon and you gave everyone a free download on Halloween. I saw that, which I think was incredible. So thank you for putting out there to people who wanted to read the book. Let's talk a little bit about, and again, without giving too much away, because this gets really good. And I think that the breaking point there is once she vanishes, there's this whole other side to the story. Let's talk about Claire and Alicia. Like, let's talk about the two characters because these are two women. Claire and her husband, they obviously have everything. It's a ideal life, but they don't have a child. That's something that they want. They try to find the surrogate. We all know that surrogates do change their minds. We have seen cases like that. But this particular one has a set of things that maybe other surrogates don't. She's undocumented. She's a housekeeper. And she vanishes. And to be honest with you, without giving anything away to the reader, I would vanish too if I were carrying a life inside of me and I knew that in a couple of days I'd have to give it up. Like, that's just a mother instinct. So let's talk about them two specifically, Eddie. How did you profile the characters?
Well, the story definitely unfolds through Claire Cooper that you mentioned. She's an elegant, polished, privileged art dealer. She owns an art gallery in Chelsea, New York City, and she convinces herself that she's helping Alicia, right? You mentioned that Alicia is the housekeeper, right? She convinces her that helping Alicia would help her, I would say, get to things that I don't want to read.
Yes, don't give too much away.
But that help comes with conditions. That help comes with leverage. That help comes with ownership. And I wanted to explore the story, which, by the way, is something that we haven't mentioned yet. But I'm a big fan of Alice in Wonderland. And
okay.
I don't think this is a big of a spoiler, but obviously Alicia is named after Alice, and there is a reason why, right? So the thing is that in this case, in Alicia, I decided to tell the story of Alice in Wonderland through the Queen of Hearts point of view, and that is Claire Cooper, right? And Alicia is Alice, and Alicia falls into the rabbit hole in this whole story, but the rabbit hole is not the fantastical rabbit hole that you can imagine from Alice in Wonderland. In this case, is a long, dark, forgotten tunnel that she has to do in order that she has to cross the border from Mexico to the U.S. And she gets to the U.S., which is the Wonderland of today. I wanted to paint that picture so your listeners and your viewers can understand that this book can be read in different layers. There's actually a book club companion piece that I wrote that people can download it from the website, but I definitely advise people to read the book first and then they read this document because it tells you all the parallels between Alice in Wonderland and Alicia. Because in this story, in Alicia, every character is chasing their own white rabbit, and every white rabbit has a different meaning for every character. So that is part revealed in that document. But I wanted people to just read the book without having, really paying attention to Alice in Wonderland at all. So yeah, in my version, Wonderland is today's New York City, basically.
I think we also go down another rabbit hole. So talk to us about what the message here is for readers to take away, given that, there's different topics here. There's a marriage topic, there's wanting a child topic, there's a surrogate topic, there's an undocumented, very timely and relevant topic to what we're living today in this country. And I think, across many other places around the world. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes. Well, certainly, as you said, Maggie, the story touches on many different topics: control, motherhood, surrogacy, undocumented life. You mentioned something important, which is the fractures that can appear in a marriage. And I would say that one of the takeaways is that privilege can sometimes disguise itself as kindness. And I do believe that it's very powerful in this story in particular, because that's one of the main ideas that kept echoing as I wrote the story. And because Claire believes that she's doing something generous in this case, right? By offering Alicia to be her surrogate, and she will get paid handsomely by being the surrogate. But that generosity is rooted in control. And I wanted readers to sit with that discomfort. I wanted to see how good intentions can become instruments of power. And obviously, at a deeper level, Alicia is about love as well, and different types of love. There is a brotherly love. There is husband and wife love. There is a lot of types of love in this story, and I wanted to explore that as well. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I would love the readers to take away.
So in reading the quote as soon as you open the book, which says, "Who in the world am I think we're all faced with that question at different, stages of our lives. Every time, when we're going to get married, or we're having children, or we change jobs, or we're confronted with any life change, you're like, who am I? Where am I going? What's my journey? I think we don't ask ourselves that question enough. We've been through layoffs and restructures, and it forces us to think who we are and what we want to do next, right?
Yes.
So how has the novel, after you were said and done with it, changed you as a person? Because I know that it's made me think about a lot of different things after I was done with it, and it sent me a powerful message, and it's a message that I think a lot of people should be analyzing and thinking about in many different ways, not only about who am I, but like, do we want to stay living here? Do we want to go somewhere else? Like, is this what we want our children to grow up listening and learning about? It becomes a lot of clutter and a lot of questions. So let's focus on how it changed you as a writer and as a person.
Well, first of all, this, with what you said, it reminds me of a quote from a comedy. It's a movie called The Party with Peter Sellers. It's a classic comedy. It's a very funny movie. In one occasion, in one scene, they ask the main character, who was Peter Sellers, they ask him, "Who do you think you are?" And he says, "I don't think who I am. I know who I am." So I think it's relevant to mention it here because writing Alicia definitely, taught me about, many things. Getting into writing Alicia, like, I already knew who I was. The thing is that going through the process, I learned a lot more about myself and about my relationship with fictional characters, but also my relationship with real characters. Years ago, my mother was kidnapped for 24 hours in Venezuela. And that's where I really learned about the concept of control and letting go of control and giving your control to somebody else to help you get what you wanted, which in my case was the release of my own mother. Some of that is reflected into the story, right? Because there is a disappearance here.
Yeah.
And in this book. So part of that is a personal experience that I went through. And I guess I was able to bring it back to life. But I also, as a writer, I would say that I learned to stay in the uncomfortable moments, right? Not to cut away too fast, as you might do when you're making a movie. And I think that fiction really forces you to sit with silence and sometimes contradiction. And that was new for me, right? To let things tremble and not having things to necessarily explode, but leaving things to tremble. It's very hard to do as a writer and keep the attention of the reader. So those are the type of things that I would say how it changed me as a writer and as a person, I guess.
There's emotions run high every day in this country for different reasons, right? And I think after you read a novel like this, right, that has that undocumented element attached to it, and it's almost a wake-up call to people that just listen to the stories and watch the news, and you get into this world in the story of someone who's actually being, I don't want to say she's being taken advantage of, but it's sort of like you said, she does, Claire does have control over her. They do have control over her. So to a certain extent, she is being taken advantage of, depending on how you look at it. So how do you expect the reader to feel after they've read this? Because I know how I feel. So I want to hear, like, you were inside this world.
It's a good question because I really hope readers feel compassion, but not only for Alicia. I want them to feel compassion for Claire as well. And it sounds difficult, right?
Yeah,
You're talking about the villain here, but everybody in this story goes through a transformation, Claire included. So everybody gets transformed in part because of this particular situation that takes place. So I hope readers can understand that there's compassion that you can feel for characters that maybe you don't even like, but you understand their transformation and then you get to feel that compassion. I also want the readers to feel their own moral thresholds. I think that's extremely important. I want the readers to ask themselves where empathy ends and self-interest begins. Those are two things that I think are key here. And the last thing I would say is that the novel doesn't offer answers for some of these things. I want the reader to come up with their own answers, right? And especially as you mentioned before, and obviously we don't want to spoil it, but there is something that happens right at the middle of the book, right? That changes course. So obviously it's the importance here is how can you feel empathy and compassion for every single character. And that's obviously part of my job as a writer to see if you can feel that.
You know, when you write something like that, you get into the world of these characters and their circumstances. Is there a time where you said, oh my God, you have to give it a good cry, or you felt what the character felt? And tell me a little bit about the emotional part of that.
It was a roller coaster, I must say. It's an emotional roller coaster. I can tell you that I've been living with this character for months now, for months, and I've been writing nights, weekends. Every time I had the time to sit down and spend time with these characters, I enjoyed it a lot. But I also understood the responsibility of providing, as I would say, much justice as I could for each one of these characters, because every character, from Claire to Andrew to Alicia, even to Father Miller, the priest, or even Fletcher, there's the detective. There's so many characters here that I had to spend time with them and understand where they're coming from, where they're heading. And I knew the importance that they had and the impact that they had in this story. And then to top that off, every character represents somehow, I don't want to reveal too much, a metaphor of a character from Alice in Wonderland. So I had that double job of writing a story while trying to reflect these characters that are metaphors from another 160-year-old story. So yes, it was quite an undertaking.
So, this is a very unique story. As someone, like I said, I'm not a bookworm, but I like my good suspenseful novels. So I know where the good ones are. Like I told you, I'm waiting for that one to come out. But we're navigating right now in the age of AI in a very complicated, situation, because I can go on ChatGPT and be like, hey, do me a 300-page novel on whatever. And I'm sure ChatGPT is going to spit it out. Tell me how an emerging writer navigates in this environment.
I would say three things. One is nowadays you don't need to get permission from anyone. You simply don't wait for permission. You just start writing. I used to write screenplays and I shelved a lot of them. I have a lot of stories that I want to tell, but I realized that if I have a screenplay, let's say I wrote Alicia as a screenplay first, I thought that it might only be read by 10 people in Hollywood, right? And that ship has sailed. Things have changed a lot.
Yeah, they have. They really have. So you can go to Amazon and do your book, because I know from experience that my dad wrote a couple of books. He was a writer, by the way. Totally different topic from yours, but he published his books through Amazon. So is that how you did it? Is that how the route that you took?
That's the route that I took. Funny enough, because I've been really, really privileged that I've been getting so many good reviews and some even media coverage, including your invitation here, that I've talked to talent agents now that are reaching out and they're asking me, why did you self-publish? You should have waited for me and we would have been able to get you a publishing house. And I said, well, you know what? I didn't want to wait. Now all of these tools have been democratized that anyone can publish. So I decided I'm not going to wait for any gatekeeper. I'm going to do it on my own and see how people react. It's not 10 people reading. Now it's thousands of people that can potentially read the story. So that's the freedom that really mattered to me. The second thing would be there are hundreds of tools. Not even only AI tools. There are so many tools that would allow you to learn how to write. I can tell you, and I'm going to actually give it a plug to a YouTube channel, a guy called John Fox. He has a YouTube channel called the Book Fox. I watched more than 90, probably closer to 100 of his videos. He's a fantastic teacher. He taught me so much about writing. It was a masterclass. Like I would watch every single of his videos and I learned every day something new about writing. So I use that. Right? That's YouTube and that's free, right? And it was fantastic. So thank you, John Fox, if you are in this. But those are tools that are out there. You mentioned AI, definitely from ChatGPT to any other AI tool that you can think of can definitely help you and develop characters or help you with structure or making sure that the story is going the direction that you want to go. There's definitely plenty of tools right now that you can use. But the third thing I would say is you need to start small. And I do believe that that's how I started with Alicia. I started small. This is a novella, right? This is a 140-page story. It was meant to be that way because I want people to read it in a single sitting, just like they're watching a movie. And that was the whole purpose of it. But it's similar to what I did when I started making movies. I started with a short film, a 3-minute short film, because I didn't have the experience. So I made a short film. And I'm very privileged to say that that 3-minute short film ended up premiering at the Venice Film Festival. And that gave me a lot of, confidence to then go and make a feature film. So you have to start small. You have to start somewhere. And then you go little by little. And hopefully you're going to be able to write more or, bigger books or longer, whatever it is. But I would say don't wait for permission. Start using all the tools that are out there. Most of them are free, and start small.
I mean, it's amazing that you shared that. Thank you for sharing that. That Fox, what is it? Book Fox on YouTube?
Book Fox.
Yeah.
It's a YouTube channel called the Book Fox. And actually I sent a note to John, to the channel creator, thanking him. I told him that he was my unintentional mentor, editor, to polish my skills. I needed to learn, and John is a fantastic storyteller, and he really explains very well all of the, from A to Z, how to write a novel.
I feel like after reading that, and you're right, it was shorter than other books that I've read recently. What's next for you? Is there a new story, an adaptation? You said you have a bunch of screenplays there. What new things on the horizon? Will we see a movie coming out about this?
I would love to.
Let's put it out there. Anyone listening from Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus?
I'd love to adapt it for film or television one day, for sure. It has all of the elements.
It really does.
I believe that it's I think it's a very strong character-driven psychological mystery. It has all of the elements to be a good movie or a good limited series. But yes, I'm already writing my next book, my next stories. I have tons of them, but I need to really be selective. And in this case, after this experience with Alicia, I kind of know where I want to go next. So while I navigate the possibility of turning this into a movie or a TV show, whatever, I'm already working on my next projects. So we'll see. I'll definitely let you know. I'll keep you posted.
Oh, no. You have to keep in touch and let me know for sure, because, I definitely want to come back and have another conversation on whatever next project that is, definitely. So, Eddie, thank you for being on the podcast. I want to always leave our listeners with a final thought from whoever's on here, and I'd like to give you that opportunity.
All I'm saying, Maggie, is I'm very glad that people like you are out there creating cool stuff, learning, asking questions, because that's with, you mentioned AI a couple of times, and we need now to be more human than ever. And having this type of a human connection is something that we have to pay attention to that. And thank you so much for the invitation. Really, I really appreciated the chat.
No, you're coming back again soon. I won't let you off the hook. I'll be sharing that promo from LinkedIn, and you'll see how I promote things. I give it a ton of promotion. They call me at FIU the Maggie phone, because whenever you need something amplified, I definitely know how to do it. Like, my career has always been, as you know, being in programming and acquisitions and production. But after you're done with that, you have to promote your product. So that's my specialty, and the reason that this podcast has now been around for going on 5 years and going into season 8 next year. So thank you for being one of our guests.
Oh, thank you so much, Maggie. Thank you for having me.
And for all the readers out there, Eddie's book is available on Amazon, right?
Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, walmart.com. I think they can go to aliciathebook.com and they'll see everything.
Okay, we'll put everything in the post when we promote it, and everybody can go and get their copy.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience. This has been season 7 of Tech Conversations.